I'm Sophia here in San Francisco. I'm at the Ubisoft office. I'm joined by Michael McIntyre, level design director from Ubisoft Montreal, and we're here to see Prince of Persia, The Forgotten Sands. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right, so it seems that we're returning back to the original Sands of Time trilogy here. So could you tell us what this Prince of Persia is all about?
Yeah, certainly. You're right. It's a return to the Sands of Time universe, essentially. We're playing the same prince as we played in Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones. And we're basically following a story that happened to this character in the 7-year gap in his life between the Sands of Time and Warrior Within segments. So he clearly had a lot of interesting things that happened to him in that time, and so we're going to tell a story of what one of those things were.
All right, so could you give us a little more details on the story and where's he going and what's happening?
Yeah, certainly. The setting of the story is essentially the prince is going to visit his elder brother at his elder brother's kingdom. He arrives there to find it under attack, and so the story is the prince working with his brother to try to solve this problem, and that gets caught up with a lot of magical armies and mysterious forces and whatnot, and the prince essentially has this whole adventure where he's trying to solve this problem.
How does the gameplay work? Is it very similar to the original games?
Anyone who played the Sands of Time trilogy will find a lot of the gameplay reminiscent, like a lot of the basics, like combat and the acrobatics, puzzles. A lot of that will be very familiar. And on the top of that core, we've basically tried to develop a few new things. Like there's some new magic powers. The combat's a little more huge and intense, but it'll be a familiar experience for people who have played Sands of Time.
Yeah, the rewind mechanic is also back. Could you also talk about the new powers? You can control elements now.
That's right. Now a lot of the magic is focused on the elements of nature, like earth, air, fire, water, that kind of thing. The rewind is back, but most of our abilities are focused on the prince having to have some sort of control over these elements to give him mastery of his environment, so for acrobatics, and mastery in combat, so over enemies. So the magic powers are very interesting, I think, in this installment, just because they are so intertwined with the core parts of the gameplay, the acrobatics and the combat.
And during our demo, you also mentioned that there's customization options. Can you go into detail about that?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, you're right. Basically, there's a whole, you can customize your character to some degree in terms of what powers they like to use in combat, and in terms of what kind of prince you want to play. There are some core things that everyone will have, all the acrobatics and some core magic powers, but there are other ones that they can add on to customize their character to some degree.
And as a level designer, what inspires you to build these levels and make them creative and have puzzle elements in them?
Well, as the level designers, I think what really inspires us is the experience that you're trying to drive at each point, where if you want to feel like that you're in a large mysterious place that you want to climb around every nook and cranny, or are you in a sequence where you feel like you have to go because you're in great danger, or are you in a sequence where you've dropped in this deep pit and you're surrounded by a lot of enemies. So I think that's what really drives them, is that idea of pacing the experience between feeling like you're exploring to feeling like you are in the middle of some heavy action.
All right, so when is the game coming out?
It'll be coming out in May 2010.
All right, thank you so much for your time. And that was our look at Prince of Persia, The Forgotten Sands. Be sure to check back on GameSpot.com for more coverage.